The certified
HOA
letter
built a
arrived on a
park over my
Tuesday morning,
easement. I
and
closed
Marcus
it and
Chin,
collected
a
rent.
42-year-old civil engineer with 20 years of land surveying experience. Read it 3 times before the reality sank in. The Willow Creek HOA was demanding he remove his illegal fence. Within 7 days, the fence that ran along his property line, the fence he built 5 years ago after meticulously surveying every inch of his land. The fence that apparently now blocked access to their brand new community park. Marcus walked to his back window and stared at the playground equipment, the picnic tables, the paved walking path that wound through what the HOA called community green space. Except it wasn't community space. It was his easement. His legally recorded, deed-protected easement that he purchased specifically because it gave him control over that 10-foot strip of land, running the entire western boundary of his property. For 6 months, he'd watched them build it, assuming they'd done their due diligence. Apparently, they hadn't, and now they were threatening him. Marcus set the letter down and opened his file cabinet, pulling out the folder he'd been maintaining since the day he bought this house. Tonight, the Willow Creek HOA was about to learn the difference between a homeowner and a civil engineer who specialized in property disputes. But tonight, everything was about to change. Where are you from? Tell us in the comments below. And if you're loving this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more satisfying justice stories. Now, let's see exactly how this unfolded. This is a story in 3 parts. The violation that pushed a meticulous professional too far. The confrontation where decades of expertise met suburban arrogance. And the resolution where legal reality crushed entitled assumptions. Marcus Chun had spent 2 decades of his career resolving property disputes for major construction firms. He knew easement law the way surgeons knew anatomy. For 6 months, he'd watched the HOA make their catastrophic mistake, documenting every cement pour, every fence post, every playground installation. He'd tried the peaceful route, first polite emails, certified letters. Even an in-person meeting where the HOA president dismissed him like an annoying child. They'd laughed at his concerns, assured him their lawyers had cleared everything, implied he was too stupid to understand property law. They had no idea they'd just threatened the one person in the neighborhood who could dismantle their entire project with a single legal filing. The confrontation would happen at their monthly meeting, where Marcus would walk in with a document folder that would drain the color from every board member's face. And the resolution would involve locked gates, rental invoices, and a lesson in respecting expertise that would cost them far more than just money. Here's exactly how it happened. Marcus had purchased 447 Meadowbrook Drive 7 years ago, specifically because of the easement. The property came with a 10-foot wide strip of land running 340 feet along the western boundary, technically part of the larger community parcel, but with exclusive easement rights granted to his property deed in perpetuity. It was a quirk of the original 1960s subdivision plan, when his lot had been the access point for utility maintenance. The previous owner, a retired attorney named Dorothy Walsh, had explained it carefully. You don't own that land, but you control it completely. Nothing happens there without your written permission. Not a mailbox, not a flower bed, not a bench. I've spent 40 years making sure the HOA understood that. Marcus had appreciated the detail because easement rights were his specialty. He'd spent his entire career surveying commercial properties, resolving boundary disputes, testifying in court about property line conflicts. He knew exactly what he was buying. The first time Marcus noticed construction activity was in late March, almost 8 months ago. He returned from a business trip to find survey stakes and orange marking paint across the easement strip. His stomach dropped. He immediately called the HOA management company and reached Linda Foster, the property manager, who assured him it was just preliminary work for beautification of community spaces. Marcus explained, carefully and professionally, that the easement belonged to his property rights and nothing could be built there without his explicit written consent. Linda had actually laughed, and said, "I'm sure our lawyers have handled all that. Don't worry about it." Marcus did worry about it. He spent that evening pulling his property deed, the original subdivision plat, and the easement documentation. Everything was crystal clear. He drafted a formal letter, sent it certified mail, and waited. The HOA never responded. By May, the construction was in full swing. Marcus watched from his kitchen window as contractors poured a concrete walking path directly across his easement, installed playground equipment with footings that went 4 feet deep in the soil he controlled, and erected a split-rail fence that enclosed the entire area. He documented everything. Time-stamped photographs, video recordings with GPS metadata. He even walked the perimeter with his professional survey equipment, confirming that every single structure violated his easement rights. He sent 3 more certified letters. The HOA ignored all of them. In June, Marcus requested a meeting with the HOA board. President Patricia Whitmore, a real estate agent who'd served on the board for 12 years, met him in the community center with 2 other board members present. Marcus brought his documentation deed, plat map, easement language highlighted. Patricia barely glanced at it. "Mr. Chun, I understand you're concerned, but our attorney reviewed all the property documents before we broke ground. This is community land. Your house is over there," she gestured vaguely, "and the park is over there. There's no conflict." Marcus tried explaining easement rights. Patricia cut him off. "I've been on this board for 12 years. I think I know our property boundaries. Unless you have a law degree, I suggest you let the professionals handle this." The other board members nodded agreement. Marcus left that meeting knowing exactly what he had to do. If they wanted to play the credential game, he'd show them what professional expertise actually looked like. Marcus spent July and August building his case with the same precision he'd used for a multi-million-dollar commercial dispute. He hired an independent surveyor, not himself, to avoid any conflict of interest allegations, who confirmed every measurement. He obtained updated title reports. He researched case law specific to easement violations in his state and found 17 precedents that supported his position. He calculated the fair market rental value of his easement, $4,200 per month, based on comparable commercial lease rates for recreational space. He documented every HOA meeting minute from the past 2 years, finding 0 mention of easement concerns or legal clearances. And then, in late September, the HOA sent him the letter demanding he remove his fence. The fence that had been there 5 years. The fence that was completely on his property. The fence they now claimed blocked access to their park. Marcus read that letter and smiled for the first time in months. They just handed him everything he needed. Because now this wasn't just about the easement violation. Now they were threatening him. Now he had damages. Now he had legal justification for immediate action. He drafted his response, scheduled his attorney, and prepared for the October HOA meeting. If they wanted war, Marcus would show them what an engineer who specialized in property battles could do. October 15th arrived cold and clear. The monthly HOA meeting was scheduled for 7 p.m. in the community center. Marcus arrived at 6:55, carrying a leather document folder and wearing the same suit he wore for court testimony, navy blue, press, authoritative. The community room held about 30 residents scattered across folding chairs. Patricia Whitmore sat at the front table with 4 other board members working through printed agendas. Marcus signed in and took a seat in the back row. The meeting proceeded through standard business budget reports, landscaping contracts, upcoming holiday decorations. At 7:40, Patricia opened the floor for homeowner comments. Marcus stood. "Marcus Chun, 447 Meadowbrook Drive. I need to discuss the community park built on my property easement." Patricia's expression hardened immediately. "Mr. Chun, we've been over this. The park is on community land. Our attorney cleared everything." Marcus walked to the front of the room, opened his folder, and placed a document on the table. "This is the original 1965 subdivision plat showing easement designation. This," he placed another document, "is my current deed with easement rights explicitly stated. This," another document, is an independent survey completed last month, confirming that 100% of your park infrastructure sits on my easement. The room went silent. Board member David Torres picked up the survey. His face went pale. This can't be right. Marcus placed another document down. This is case law from Martinez v. Homestead Association, where the court ruled that permanent structures on easement property constitute trespass regardless of good faith errors. This, another document, is my calculation of fair market rental value for recreational use of my easement, $4,200 per month. And this, he placed his final document with deliberate precision, is your letter threatening legal action against me for offense that's completely on my own property, which now gives me documented damages for harassment. Patricia's hand shook slightly as she reached for the papers. Our attorney reviewed everything. He said there were no issues. Marcus pulled out his phone and opened a PDF. Did your attorney review this? Because I pulled your meeting minutes through the public records request. There's no mention of easement research in any meeting from the past 2 years. There's no recorded title search. There's no documentation of legal clearance, which means either your attorney committed malpractice or you never actually asked him to check. The board members looked at each other, panic spreading across their faces. David Torres cleared his throat. Let's say, hypothetically, there was an oversight. What exactly are you proposing? Marcus had prepared for this question. I'm proposing you have 2 options. Option 1, I file for immediate injunctive relief. The court orders you to remove every structure from my easement at your expense. I sue for trespass, lost use of property, legal fees, and harassment. Based on comparable cases, you're looking at $180,000 to $250,000 in total costs, plus 18 months of construction chaos while you rebuild somewhere else. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Patricia held up her hand for silence. And option 2? Marcus met her eyes steadily. Option 2. You acknowledge in writing that you built on my easement without permission. You pay me $4,200 per month in rent, retroactive to March when construction began. That's $33,600 for the 8 months already elapsed. You grant me a key to the park gates and acknowledge my right to close the park whenever I choose, since it's my easement. You remove the fence section that blocks my property access. And you never ever threaten me with legal action again. Patricia's face went red. That's extortion. Marcus shook his head. That's significantly below what I'd win in court. And it lets you keep your park instead of tearing it down. You have 72 hours to decide. After that, my attorney files the injunction. He closed his folder and walked out, leaving the board in chaos behind him. 40-8 hours later, Marcus received a call from Richard Drummond, the HOA's attorney. The conversation was brief and professional. Richard had reviewed the documentation, confirmed the easement issue, and recommended the board accept option 2 immediately. Patricia Whitmore called that evening, her voice tight with barely controlled anger, and agreed to Marcus's terms. The check for $33,600 arrived by courier the next morning, along with a notarized agreement acknowledging the easement violation and agreeing to monthly rental payments. Marcus deposited the check and installed a new gate at the park entrance with his own lock. The neighborhood reaction was immediate and divided. Some residents, particularly those who watched the HOA's overreach for years, quietly congratulated Marcus. Others, especially Patricia's OIs, accused him of being vindictive and greedy. Marcus didn't care. He'd done everything by the book, and the book had proven him right. 3 weeks after the settlement, Marcus was inspecting the park on a Saturday morning when he noticed fresh survey stakes near the eastern boundary. His jaw clenched. He called Patricia immediately. What are those stakes for? Patricia's voice was cold. We're planning a new walking trail on actual community land. Don't worry, Mr. Junn. We've learned our lesson about checking property boundaries. Marcus verified her claim with his own survey equipment that afternoon. She was right. The new trail was completely clear of his easement. But the survey stakes were sloppy, placed by someone who clearly didn't understand professional standards. Marcus made a note to keep watching. Trust, once broken, took years to rebuild. The monthly rent payments arrived like clockwork, always on the first of the month, always exactly $4,200. Marcus deposited them into a dedicated account and watched the balance grow. By December, he collected $42,000. He used part of it to upgrade his survey equipment and donated $10,000 to a local legal aid society that helped homeowners fight HOA overreach. The irony wasn't lost on him. The turning point came in January when Marcus encountered Patricia at the neighborhood grocery store. She was loading bags into her car when she spotted him and froze. Marcus nodded politely and kept walking, but she called after him. "Mr. Chun, can I speak with you for a moment?" He turned, cautious. Patricia looked exhausted, older than her 56 years. "I owe you an apology. When Richard showed us the full legal analysis, when we understood how badly we'd messed up ... I realized I'd been incredibly arrogant. You tried to tell us. Multiple times. And I dismissed you because I thought I knew better." Marcus studied her carefully. "You dismissed me because you've been on the board for 12 years and assumed that meant you understood property law better than someone who does this professionally. That's not just arrogance. That's dangerous incompetence." Patricia flinched but nodded. "You're right. The board voted me out last month. David Torres is the new president. He's an accountant, and he's already hired a proper property attorney to review every inch of community land. We found 2 other easement issues your case made us look for. We're fixing them now, before they become problems." Marcus felt some of his anger ease. That's the right approach. Expertise matters. Credentials matter. When someone tells you they specialize in something, maybe listen instead of assuming you know better. Patricia extended her hand. "I learned that lesson the expensive way. Thank you for not destroying us in court." "You could have." Marcus shook her hand. "I didn't want to destroy anything. I just wanted respect, and my property rights protected." They parted cordially, not quite friends, but no longer enemies. 2 months later, Marcus sat on his back deck on a warm March afternoon. Watching neighborhood kids play in the park, he technically controlled. The irony made him smile. He'd fought for his easement rights not because he wanted to close the park, but because principle mattered, because expertise mattered, because homeowners who did their homework deserved to be taken seriously, not dismissed. The monthly rent payments continued, now totaling over $50,000 for the year. Marcus had used the money to fund a scholarship for civil engineering students at his alma mater, specifically for those studying property law and land surveying. It felt appropriate turning the HOA's mistake into education for the next generation. His neighbor, James Rodriguez, a high school physics teacher who'd supported Marcus throughout the dispute, joined him on the deck with 2 beers. "You know, half the neighborhood thinks you're a genius, and half thinks you're a villain." Marcus accepted the beer and grinned. "I'm neither. I'm just someone who knew his rights and refused to be pushed around. The HOA gambled that I'd be too intimidated or too ignorant to fight back. They lost that gamble." James clinked his bottle against Marcus's. "Think you'll ever let them buy out the easement?" Marcus had considered it. The HOA's attorney had floated the idea of a one-time payment of $125,000 to purchase the easement rights permanently. Marcus had declined. Maybe someday, but right now, that monthly check is a reminder that expertise matters, that doing your homework matters, that you can't just bully people because you've been on a board for 12 years. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and purple over the park that technically belonged to Marcus Chun, the civil engineer who turned an HOA's arrogance into a masterclass on property rights. Marcus had learned that sometimes justice doesn't come from backing down or accepting that the board knows best. Sometimes it comes from understanding exactly what you own, exactly what you're owed, and exactly how to make people respect both. And as Marcus sat there in peace, the monthly rent continuing to arrive like clockwork, he smiled. Because justice, whether measured in dollars or principle, was equally satisfying when you'd earned it through preparation, patience, and refusing to let anyone dismiss your expertise. Across the country in Scottsdale, Arizona marine biologist Dr. Rachel Fontaine received a violation notice from her HOA for the excessive noise of her backyard koi pond, the same pond she'd installed with full architectural approval 3 years ago. Rachel looked at the notice, then at the HOA president's newly installed hot tub positioned 15 feet from her bedroom window, and made a phone call to the county environmental compliance office. "I'd like to report an unpermitted water feature that's creating mosquito breeding conditions," she said calmly, her PhD in aquatic ecosystems suddenly becoming very relevant. The inspector arrived within 48 hours. But that's a story for another time.